All right. I want to welcome everybody to the Sedated Man, episode 77, The Marriage Revolution, an interview with Chris Borghese. I'm pretty excited for this one. Chris and I have been talking a little bit back and forth, and he's got a mission, and you can hear it from both he and his wife. And I was ecstatic that he wanted to be on here. So Chris, obviously nobody else really knows you, or maybe some do, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your business?
Yeah. Well, first, Michael, thanks for having me. I know you're crushing it. It's a great podcast, and I'm thankful you actually thought about me, and I fit into your avatar, and I really want to give a lot of value to your audience and to you today. So, a little bit about me. So, I was born in Columbus, Ohio. I'm a Buckeye. I basically went to Ohio State, and then had an encounter with God when I was 24, and I had a little weakness, and that was with women. And when that happened, I was engaged to be married, and when that happened, I was depressed. I was just like wanting to end it. I didn't have the guts to end it, but I did, or didn't want. I wanted to, but didn't. And so when I was 24, I had an encounter with God that was just life changing. It's just the difference between my life before and after. The people we used to work with were just like, this is a very radically different person. There is something about this. So I was known as the Bible junkie. I went off to seminary, got seminary trained, met my wife, and while I was there. And so I was in a pastorate for about 6-9 months, and I decided, you know what? I want to go outside the walls of the church. I have an evangelistic heart.
Absolutely.
I really want to share the love of God to others who didn't have the same opportunity that I had. And so we went into corporate America, and I worked my way up with a Fortune Top 13 company. And at the end of 2015, that ended. So after that, it was kind of like, well, what's next? What's next, Lord? And so my son and I developed a company called Funnel Flyers, and there we help websites, and we do websites and funnels, sales funnels for companies. But it was really he was younger, and he really needed something to go to. So so that's what we did that. And out of that, because that is so successful for him, I decided to step away from that. And my wife and I created this marriage revolution, because at the core of this is that I'm a real people person. And let me tell you a quick story. I was interviewing with a company in St. Louis, Missouri, and I met this guy or gal who her husband was a high executive with a very large company that I could name. And he basically he was really nervous, really anxious about his life, about what's going to happen. So he got hooked on cocaine. And at 55, he got hooked, but at the time he was 60, he overdosed. And this lady who was telling me at the airport was telling me the story, and I was like, wow, what would lead a person to all of the different scenarios in a life where they would just want to give up? I want to help those types of people going forward. So at that moment, I realized that was my calling. My calling is people. And that's why we created the Marriage Revolution, because of the fact that Tara and I are both people oriented. And we happen to have the good fortune to be able to meet a gentleman by the name of Dr. Robert Rohn. He was, he's an expert in the DISC model of human behavior.
Okay.
And at that time, do you know him, Michael? Ever heard of him?
No, I don't know him, but I know I'm familiar with DISC.
Yeah. And so he actually trained Zig Ziglar, and he trained John Maxwell on all this. He's been in the space, written 2 books. He took a liking to me, and he became my mentor. So I've been learning DISC fervently, and I've become certified to train it and all of that. So he took me under his wing. So because of my corporate background, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to take this to businesses. I'm going to help them be able to grow and expand and have good teams, functional teams. But then the Lord said, No. He stopped me and Tar dead in our tracks. And he said, no, I want you to work on marriages. And here is the defining moment for me. I was talking to some ladies about and some couples about what I was doing with disc and so forth. And they started telling me about their marriage. And I had a gal who grabbed me by my arm and said, Chris, for the love of God, do not tell my husband what I just told you, or it's going to be really difficult. And I thought, wow, there is a deep seated pain here. So there's not only the stats that one of every two marriages end in divorce, there's a lot of people, a lot of women, a lot of men possibly too, who are in a marriage that they just don't like. So that's why we created the Marriage Revolution. What Dr. Rome has done is taking the disc and brought it down to the marriage level. And so we help couples survive and thrive right now in marriages.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, well, you know, it's interesting you say that. So the stats, unlike what a lot of people think, the stats for Christian, or let's just say faith-based for this matter, faith-based and non-faith-based are almost identical. So
Yeah.
a lot of people think, oh, well, you know, marriages are better in the church. No, marriages are not better in the church. Marriages are suffering in the church just as much as they're suffering in the world.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that you went the way of marriage. My wife and I, you know, we've counseled many couples, and we've used, you know, we've used love languages. We've used the flag page. We've used DISC. We've used, you know, we've used all of those, and they're all great tools, and they're necessary to help people understand who they are anymore. So that's awesome. So now you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, you went to a pastoral college, right?
Yes. I went to Grace Seminary in Winona Lake, Indiana.
But you did not become a pastor.
Well, I was a pastor for about 6-7 months, and I decided to move myself out. Now I got ordained, but I decided to go into corporate America.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, what prompted that move?
Well, I just wanted to be able to share my faith and with others who may not have the same opportunities I have had. Now, I found that when I was in the church, and it was awesome. It was a great experience, but most obviously they were already faith-based. And I just felt a hunger to be able to get out and bring that message to the world and to be a light in the darkness. Not to say you can't within the church, but just for my calling, I felt like this was just something I wanted to get out and tell people about the love of Jesus.
No, absolutely. I think that's awesome. I think a lot of people, or I think a lot of Christian men especially, are afraid to do things like that because of what it means for them overall. You know, you look in scripture, David and Paul and those guys, they never had a problem identifying who they were. But men these days within the church, they have tremendous problems identifying who they were. Whereas you wanted to be a pastor, became a pastor, and decided, this does not feed me the way I need to be fed. And not knocking ministers or pastors or priests. It's not for everybody. And you went where it was. So I bring this up only because I try to, boy, it's hard to really put if I'm just going to say it, guys, they get wimpy and they don't want to step into a business type area what would the world look like? What would government look like if genuine, there it is. Everybody hear me? Genuine faith-based men occupied council member positions, governor positions, you know, all the way up. And what would it look like if you had more faith-based men in corporate America, more faith-based, genuine men, you know, doing business? The U.S. wouldn't look the way it does now. And you wouldn't have to vote on the lesser two evils. But I digress a little bit. So was it hard then to blend your business side with your faith-based sides? Or was it pretty seamless?
It was pretty seamless for me because of the fact that I knew that these are the folks, this is my tribe, right? And I knew who I was. And so I would just show up powerfully. And I wasn't going to allow their lifestyle be able to impact me. I was going to be the light in the darkness. But with saying that, I'm going to tell you that It's being able to adapt. It talks about Paul was all things to all men.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to talk their lingo and talk to people where they are at and to love people where they're at. So many Christian men, they want to, there's always such a rules and regulations and certainly I'm not saying that to give a license to do anything you want.
No.
What I'm saying is to be able to relate to people, you have to go to them. It's just like with Jesus. He hung out with the tax collectors and the publicans and all of those, and he felt he didn't come for the sick, or he came for the sick. He doesn't come for the religious. And so that's really where I thrive. And in fact, with the marriage revolution, the reason why I like it so well is that the first part of it is actually really for any type of faith, as long as you believe in God. I have a thing that God tells you who you are, and the dispersonality will tell you how that's expressed.
Mm-hmm.
And as men, how we respond is everything. Just like in the corporate world, when people are doing things that aren't like what we would say Christian, how you respond is everything.
Yeah.
To those folks, to be able to bring them in, to show them the love, to show them if we judge them, if we condemn them, if we show that, hey, I just can't relate to you, then they're going to get a view of the church and of Christianity that I didn't feel comfortable with. So I just have the ability to meet people where they're at and just to love them. My role is not to change people. My role is to love people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, no matter where they are.
Right. No, that's excellent. So how long have you been doing the marriage revolution at this point?
About 7 months now.
7
It started
months.
to get born in the beginning of the year, and then we really took off with it about March or so.
And how's it doing so far?
Yeah, we're doing well. We had we're developing a course, and we took 10 couples through it, and it's crazy. We had the great testimonials we've had. 3 of the 10 couples actually told us that if not for this information, that we would have divorced already.
Wow.
So we knew, and everyone had like a massive breakthrough in their marriage after like 1 or 2 sessions. It doesn't take it takes about 4 weeks. We do live coaching. We do couples coaching. We're also developing a course, not ready just yet, but we want to do a litmus test to see, just what were the results once we take this curriculum. And I have the curriculum. This is the information that Dr. Rome, it takes the disc profile and it brings it down to the level, like, how do you relate?
Mm-hmm.
How do you trust at the marriage level? How do you spend money? How do you communicate? How do you make decisions? All at the marriage level. And that is where people get the breakthrough, and why we call it the revolution. But I can tell you that it was not always this way. About 10 years into our marriage with Tara and I like I said, I was in corporate America. I was working a lot. I was traveling a lot. We had a vision, and that vision was for Tara to stay home and raise the kids, and I was going to go to corporate America and work my way up and earn enough income so we can complete that vision. So our mission was her staying home and me going to work. Cool. Well, I got a little bit complacent in my marriage. I got a little comfortable with the fact that Tara said I do 10 years ago, and that sealed it. We went to church. We prayed, we had Bible studies, all of the things that quote unquote normal Christians would say is good, but this guy became complacent. And what I mean by that, we have a saying that Chris fell asleep at the wheel and Tara almost drove us off a cliff. And the reason why I say that, and the reason why I relate to your podcast, is that I was in sedation mode. Mm-hmm. I was comfortable. I was complacent. I wasn't doing the things necessary that I did when I was courting my wife to show her that love, to show her that affection. I wasn't doing those things. I wasn't valuing her. I wasn't telling her how special she was. All of those things that men need to do to emotionally connect to their wives.
Yeah.
And I fell asleep. And out of that, the devil came in. He came in and tried to split us up through another man. Another man came in to tell Tara how wonderful she was, how interesting she was, how exciting she was, how smart she was. So while I was traveling, this gentleman came in and he bought passports. He had airline tickets. He was going to take my wife, and they were going to live a life outside of the family and relationship that we were building after 10 years. Now, thankfully, my wife said, whoa, this is a little bit much. Before it got physical, before anything happened, she told me what was going on. So she had an emotional affair. But I can conversely say I was equally at fault at this situation because I wasn't giving her what she needed. Mm-hmm. So my warning to your listeners, my warning to your men out there who could fall into the sedation that I did, it can happen to anyone. You're talking to a former pastor. You're talking to someone who led Bible studies. It happens because he blinds people. He blinds couples because he wants to seek, kill, and destroy. And if he can get the couples, separated, because we believe at the Marriage Revolution that God created, obviously, man, woman, and then marriage. It's the foundation of society. If he can attack that, then he can attack families. And then he's going to impact societies and corporations and businesses and churches. It all starts at the foundation of the marriage, which is why we went from the businesses down to the marriage, because the Lord basically said, hey, look, I want you to go after the very thing that Satan tried to separate. I want you to help marriages become secure, be able to communicate, to give them the warning signs, to be able to restore marriages. Because if we can restore marriages in a family, then we can impact the community. Impact the community, then we can impact the city. Impact the city, impact the state, and so forth. So that's our mission. We call it, we are missionaries for marriages.
I like that. So, so have you ever worked with in your dealings with married folk? Have you worked with any mixed families, blended families?
Blended families? Oh, absolutely. We have some of those who actually have taken the Marriage Revolution, and we absolutely, because really that's what's happening in society. There's so many blended societies for families, and that's where the grace that God has given me is to be able to, you know what, it's okay. We've all, taken our different journeys, different paths, but now we're back on it. And there's no condemnation. Back to Romans 8:1, no condemnation for those who Christ Jesus. So yeah, absolutely. We have that.
Yeah. Because that is, and the reason I bring that up is because my wife and I are a mixed family, but that's becoming the new norm.
Yeah.
It's, most people, when they ask my wife and I how long we've been married 24 years. And that's astounding to people.
Yeah.
How long? And you guys still like each other? Yeah, we're still best friends because we worked on it from day one.
Yeah.
But, so since we're talking to men here, what would you say some of the more common, since you've worked with so many couples now, what would you say some of the more common mistakes are that men make?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, because I have talked, because after that, we call it bump in the road at 10 years. So Tara and I have been married 27. We went after, we went the counselors, we invested in conferences, we did everything we could because we knew we had to make a decision. Were we going to let this die and just go our separate ways, or are we going to work on this? Sort of like what you decided to work on it. And that's what we did at year 10. So we've been teaching things like this for about 17 years now. And the main thing that I see within men There are a few. The first one is that communication. You know, as guys, I like to say we like to hunt and grunt. We're not very good at being able to communicate at a level with our women, with our ladies,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to sustain a connection with them. And because women want to connect, they want to talk, they want to express themselves. And most men say, well, you know what? This is who I am. You're going to have to deal with it. But really, and the thing is, and most men feel like they have to lose themselves. They have to become a woman in order to communicate effectively with their gal.
Yep.
And I'm here to tell you that is absolutely a lie, and it's really a cop out. I'll be straight up with the men. It's a cop out because it's a skill set. It's a skill set to be able to understand how your wife was wired, and to be able to how you were wired, and then the ability to say, okay, I'm going to adjust my communication to be able to connect with my wife, because that's true love. True love is saying, okay, I'm in this for her. And when you have two people doing that, when I'm adjusting my communication to Tara and Tara's adjusting her communication to me, then you have total fulfillment. Most guys, they stop that chain. The gal will talk and the guy will hunt and grunt. And so I'm just here to encourage men that, if you really want to take your marriage to the next level, let's learn how to communicate. That's really the first thing that I see, Michael, that most men just have to say, you know what, I can do this. There are guys who have done it, and I'm going to go to this. I'm going to go up that same mountain they went and learn from them. You don't have to do it alone. That's community. We talked about that before our call. There's a community, and that's what we're building in the revolution, is a community of people who are going in that same direction, who want a healthy marriage and want to connect with their wives. So there are men out there like us.
No, that's awesome. The we've taught a lot of couples. Like I said, we've used multiple programs and multiple just whatever was working. One of the things we've always taught couples is couch time, where the guy has, when he comes in at the end of the day, and you're probably familiar with this, guy comes in home at the end of the day, he doesn't talk to the kids, he sits down, he talks to the wife. Doesn't have to be on the couch. That's just typically where a lot of that type of stuff happens. And the reason being is communication.
Yeah.
So I do want to touch on something that I don't believe the church talks about enough, and I only want to touch on it. One of the things that I have found that affects communication within the marriage is whether there is a decent intimate life, or whether there is not. Because I've heard the joke quite often that when women get mad at you, they just stop talking to you, and they think that's punishing you, whereas most men are like, I don't want to talk anyway.
Yeah,
right. So that's not punishment. That's exactly. They're like, score one for the home team. Right. Yeah. so they think they're punishing them, and they're like, this isn't punishment. But so what we noticed, though, is one of the very first things to go is sex in the marriage, which most definitely affects communication. Because once that goes, now the husband doesn't know what to say, and the wife is holding, and a lot of times, I'm not saying every time, but a lot of times it's either awkward or the wife is holding the husband ransom, so to speak. So in cases like that, have you found that increasing communication in all levels has helped fix that relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. Because see, women are wired they want to have sex when they know they can connect with their man.
Yeah.
How do you connect with their man? Through communication. So that's the very first thing we teach, is the abilities, not just like I said, I've taught a lot of this word love and trust and respect and honor, and men are supposed to be leaders of the household. All of that is really great stuff. But what we teach is the practical tools to be able to help men communicate at a level that will, quote unquote, get them more sex.
Yeah.
You want that intimacy. The more intimacy that you have, we run actually a 7-day sex challenge. Sometimes you should just do it, right?
Yeah.
Just to be able to, and like we also like to say is that when you have sex with your wife, it's like warfare with the devil.
Yeah.
You are getting rid of demons because which comes first, communication or sex? Yes. Sometimes it's communication, sometimes it's sex. Sometimes sex will open up that whole communication realm if you're having those difficulties. But if you don't know how to do that, then guys can tend to get uncomfortable, and they don't want to. They have to learn how to express themselves and what they're thinking and what they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And many guys stop there also because they get offended, or there's just some things about them, fear of rejection, that their wives are going to reject them if they're really brutally honest. And can we go here real quick, Michael?
Go for it.
And here's what most men do. I've studied this. Most men will hide and they will run to porn.
Yep.
And when they run to porn, that is, for me, that is cheating on our wives.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're now taking your affection that should be directed towards your wife, my wife, and I'm directing it towards another woman. Mm-hmm. That is absolutely not how you're going to develop a good connection and a good, healthy sex life with the person that God gave us, right?
Yeah.
He said, I do for a reason. God brought us together. Let no man separate. And so we have a commitment to her to say, you know what? I will remain faithful to you. And so, yeah, that's the big word, the big 4-letter word, porn.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I interviewed Shane O'Neill, who is the head of Proven Men, and Proven Men deals specifically with porn. And what was interesting about what he said is almost right in line with what you're saying. But for one, I don't think sex is talked about enough in the churches. It's like this taboo subject. You want your kids to have a great marriage, then teach them what a godly relationship looks like in all aspects, not just the aspects that are convenient to talk about.
Yeah.
So you've got these guys in here, and I think when it comes right down to it, men need to stop worrying so much about their testosterone levels and more about their communication levels. So, because they don't understand that, they turn to porn because obviously porn doesn't say no. Porn doesn't give you the cold shoulder. Porn doesn't make you sleep on the couch. I mean, so it's an easy decision, but if they would just stop and realize that learning how to communicate with your wife is going to open the door of sex in ways that you never even imagined. It's a skill set that if you want more of that, you better learn more of this.
Yes.
So, I mean,
absolutely.
And really, it's lazy men. They need to quit being lazy. Look, you married the woman. You said, till death do us part, for better or for worse. Well, here's some of your worse. Step it up, be a man, and do the work, which is exactly what Paul did, what Peter did, what Jesus did, go down the list.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and men just need to have a little encouragement to say, you know what, this is, you got this. You can acquire the skill set.
Yep.
And we don't do it for selfish reasons. We do it because, true love is learning to say, I am going to adjust and learn my communication because I love you. I sacrifice myself. I learned the skill set because it's what's best for us. And so, I'm just here to encourage you guys to be able to, we got this. And we can have healthy marriage. And I love what you said. As we show our parents or our kids what a good, healthy marriage is, they're going to be stable, more emotionally. Just a real quick point is that I've talked to so many couples, and when that relationship is dysfunctional, I know so many kids who just don't want to get married.
Yeah.
Because, the married couple is like, they're fighting, they're arguing, they're conflict, they're slamming doors, they're sleeping on couches, they're hugging the sides of the bed, and then you go to church and you go, hi, how are you? Great. Yeah. And the kids see right through it. Yep. And they say, I don't want any of that. And sadly, I talk to those kids too. and they're still single. And let me tell you a stat. The reason why the divorce rate is coming down a little bit is because millennials are saying no to marriage,
Yeah.
because they're saying, I don't want any of that. If that's what a marriage is, no, I'm out.
Yeah. If I understand correctly, birth rates are down too
Yeah.
as a result. But uh anyway, so
Yeah.
it's such an easy fix too, and it's so easy. I mean, and the only reason I brought it up was because what my wife and I found was, a healthy sexual relationship in the marriage is like the glue that holds the chair together. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, they can talk about, okay, well, our communication sucks, or our finances, we argue about finances, or, when in truth, the first thing that we have found almost every time is the sexual relationship gone. And then they wonder why everything else starts to fall apart. That closeness is
Yeah.
gone. So, no, that was great.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's and that's a red flag for me. I
Yeah.
ask couples, how often are you having sex? And they're brutal. I mean, they're like, man, you're brutal. Yeah. Let's just be straight. Let's get the truth out. Let's just be truthful.
Yeah.
Because once the truth is exposed, or once the lies are exposed, the truth comes in, and there's so much freedom. So many guys are like, Chris, I just wish I would have done this like years ago.
Yeah.
And it's just hiding. It's like, just be real. You're not getting along with your wife. Okay, cool. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. And no, you don't have to stop being a man. You don't have to be a woman. Let's just be human and have a conversation. Let's address the issue. We had a thing in corporate America that we would always write the problem on a grease board, and we'd brainstorm ideas of how we're going to solve that problem. Men inherently are problem solvers. Unless it's like this, unless there's pain involved in their own life, then they're like, wow, and I was like this, right? At 10 years, I fell asleep. I get it. This is why I'm on a mission. This is why God's using me now to be able to express this. It's like, hey, I've been there, done that, and I bought the t-shirt to prove it. So we just want to be able to help in that arena, and to help people, guys, make that connection and be real and have honest communication. Because that's what women want.
Yeah, it is what women want. The point that I forgot to make about Shane O'Neill, the hardest thing that they have in churches with the programs that they put together is actually getting men to show up. So they'll have a purity group or an overcoming porn type group in churches, but men won't show up because the men who really need it don't want to admit. Nobody knows, don't want to admit, and communication opens that up.
Yeah.
No, that's very well said. So what is the one thing? Okay, every guy who thinks about what men are missing out on or what they need to really catch, what would you say the one thing is that you would really like to kind of pound through men's skulls?
Speak your truth. Be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Be honest with your wife. Be honest with your friends. Be honest. Just what's going on. What's really, really happening. We just talked to a couple today, and the gal is being honest, but we talked to the guy first. And the guy said, "Well, how on a scale of 1 to 10? How are you guys doing on your communication? How are you guys like relating? Are you trusting each other? Are you connecting?" And he says, "Oh, yeah, we're good. Yeah, probably 9. Yeah, a little room for improvement, but it's good. It's about a 9." And then you talk to the woman alone. We do this.
Yeah.
We like to get some people alone because of the fact that inherently many women, like that lady who grabbed my arm,
Yeah.
they do confrontation.
Yeah.
They say, I don't want I don't want a 2-headed monster. I already got a 1-headed monster. If I actually tell him what's going on, then I have a 2-headed monster. Well, you talk to the woman alone, oh, we're at a 2 or a 3. It's awful. In fact, if I could divorce this guy, I would. If I knew that the Bible doesn't teach that. And we're like, oh my gosh. And that actually was a conversation today. And so my one thing for guys is just, it is what it is. There's no shame in admitting that, hey, we're two right now. We need growth.
Yep.
Because there's more shame in living a life, 15 years, 20 years of buckling up your bootstraps into a marriage that's lifeless, a marriage where there's conflict and angst and hurt and all of that, and there's hugging the side of the mattress. No one's getting fed in that. Our kids see it. It's like, oh my gosh, let's just be real. Let's just be honest. Let's just solve the problem and let's fix it. And let's have two couples who are just loving each other. There is nothing greater for a society that has two people just absolutely, it's like are head over heels over each other, like my wife and I.
Yeah.
People ask us, Chris, I want what you have. I want that loving relationship. And it looks like you guys are banging more than a screen door in a Midwestern thunderstorm. I'm like, yeah. Well, how can I have it? Well, you're going to have to do what I did then, bro. I had to face my demons. Yep. I had to face my demons. I had to realize and come to say, look, I need help. I need a skill set. And so many people think it takes an intervention. Well, I'm going to have to go through this person and that person and healing and deliverance and all this stuff. And at this point in time, you just need to be able to learn how to communicate. Now, you may need all that stuff. Those are good things. But sometimes it's just a skill set, just like your job or my job. We just, just a skill set.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. I appreciate it. Okay. Last question. Are you ready for the last question, Chris?
I'm ready.
All right. What's the one thing you feel that the church needs to change today?
This is an easy question for me because it's one of the things that the answer is unity.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is acceptance. I realize that we have different opinions, different personalities that interpret Scripture differently. In fact, a friend of mine just posted something attacking another pastor who's a TV evangelist. I know this TV evangelist. I know his heart. I've met him. It's like, let's just let's keep the simple things simple, and that is let's love one another and let's pray for one another. But it's not to be so dogmatic to where we have to split, where we have to attack the church. We have to attack other members, people who we know are going to heaven. The enemy is the devil. It's not other churches, other people believe maybe something a little bit differently than you, but they're not the enemy. God wants us to love. Now, yes, there are boundaries and there are things that we don't want to sacrifice our core beliefs. Yep. But you can still get along with people who you don't believe in. Case in point, did you see the picture going around between George Bush and Ellen DeGeneres?
I didn't see the picture, but I heard about it on another show. Yeah. And
that is a beautiful, you have a Christian conservative man and a liberal woman who obviously believes in different things, and she's committed homosexual, right?
Yeah. But
they were still able to get along. I'm like, that's unity. It's still love. Mr. Bush isn't going to change his belief system for her, and she's not going to change her belief system for him, but they can still at least get along. So the one thing that I would love for the church to be able to do is to be able to have more unity and more fellowship with, even if they're different denominations, we're all on the same team, right? We're all on the same team. We're all going to heaven. So all these, the dogmatic rules that we have that separate us, that pits this congregation against that congregation, it's like what I talked about, or the kids see the parents. Well, the unbelievers are seeing this.
Yeah.
And they say, man, if that's what Christianity is, it looks like a lot more like hate than Christianity. I'm out.
Yeah. No. The whole when I first started the Sedated Man, uh, it was very much along the same lines. You know, I mean, I don't have a problem with somebody being right and somebody being wrong. And I don't have a problem with people having those conversations. I think men especially need to have those conversations. However, there's been such division created amongst faith-based men
Hmm.
that they can't seem to have the conversation or a conversation without screaming at each other and never talking again. Whereas
Yeah.
I would love to see, the whole idea was I wanted to create a venue where men could come together of different denominations.
Mm.
They could come together. They could have hard conversations. They could even scream. They could even scream at each other, because screaming isn't always anger. A lot, sometimes it's passion,
Yeah.
and men need to use that passion. They need to get that out. But when the conversation is done, the men need to be big enough to shake hands and remain friends.
Yes.
Should absolutely be able to adamantly disagree, but still respect the other person's
Yeah.
opinion. You know, and I mean, yeah, and you were right when you talked earlier about Jesus. You know, Jesus ate with the tax gatherers and the sinners, and how else was he supposed to get to them?
Yeah.
You know, he, outside of having a relationship with some of them,
Yeah.
not that he hung out with them and did the things they did,
Yeah.
but he was available to them, and
Right.
they knew he was available, and they knew he was non-judgmental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you bring an interesting topic. Is that a lot of times these why people don't get along, and why a lot of what happens in a lot of marriages is that we have a saying, opposites attract and then they attack. And when you don't understand how another person's wired, like if you don't understand where a person disagrees with you, how they're wired and how they interpret things, you don't respect that.
Right.
And so when you don't respect something, then it's going to be hard to embrace them and to love them the way that Christ loved the church and gave himself up for the church.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. No, that's great. Opposites attract and then they attack. I haven't heard that one. I had to write it down.
and it's actually from Dr. Rome. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I won't go and claim that one. That's Dr. Rome. He has that in one of his books. It's a great man. That's a great opportunity to be mentored.
That is awesome. All right, Chris. So where can people find you if they want to talk to you?
Well, if they want to talk to me, just go to themarriagerevolution.com, themarriagerevolution.com. You'll be able to see me and my wife and part of what we do. There'll be a phone number. That's my phone number. There'll be our email address. So just reach out to us there, and there'll be all my contact information. And I'd love to hear from someone, especially if you want to increase your communication abilities, and being able to relate to your wife, and just have a healthy marriage where we have a saying in ours as well, and we've done some research. Most couples, they have struggles in year one,
Mm-hmm.
year 8 through 10 is another time for a divorce, and then when they're empty nesters. And the reason is that we're similar. When we first get married, we're all connected to our similarities. But then as the years go by, we become complacent like me, and our opposites are now highlighted. And so now we want to be able to help people understand those opposites. And there was a reason. We tell people go back.
Right.
The reason why they were married. And so go back to that feeling. Now let's just see how we're opposite and learn how to communicate. So yeah, go to themarriagerevolution.com and check us out and check me out, and we'll love to connect.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Mhm.
Really appreciate it. So anybody who's watching this, you're either watching on Facebook or YouTube. You can also find us on any podcast platform. And if you're listening on podcast platform, you can obviously find us on YouTube and Facebook. We're also on Instagram, or you can contact me directly at mike@thesedatedman.com. That's mike@thesedatedman.com. And of course, the show notes are always on patreon.com/thesedatedman. Thanks again, Chris, and everybody have a great night.
Hey, thanks for having me.